We're going to get going here. And today, again, I would like to start a prayer. As I mentioned before, my experience in this field has been very spiritual for me. I was a young boy, and at the age of 17, I wanted to know who. I was into pyramids. I had read Psychic Discoveries, Behind the Iron Curtain. There's a point on your arm that's supposed to develop, and I laid down on a couch in my living room there with my mom. I was on the Laguna. I grew up in a very beautiful home right on the ocean front. And I was like there going, I was trying to levitate. It's like, remember that Superman one where Kneel Before Zod, and then there's the girl, and there's like the caveman who can't really laser? That was me. I was trying to get my psychic on. It wasn't working. So this girl goes, I know the Pyramid Man. I go, the Pyramid Man? Really? And it was Fred Bell. And he was right up on the hill there, and I went up there, and he was out. And when I was there, he came in with his very first 50 pyramids, gold pyramids. And we had a lot of experiences up there. He was having experiences and was given on 1975 the little receptor design by Semyasi, and there was some, let's just say, it's very difficult to explain, but we're going to try. But for me, it was a spiritual thing. I wanted to understand truth and where we're at. It wasn't like, we need free energy, the cabal's bad, and it was more like, what's this? Where do I come from? Why are we here? What's our purpose in life? And I knocked upon these doors pretty heavily my whole life and spent a lot of time in contemplation and meditation about these things. And my meditation wasn't always so good, but it's gotten better. So I want to talk about the spiritual aspect, but before I do, I want to start off with a little prayer. And this is given to us by Valiant Thor. They have, yeah. Can we get a lighter? Can you light that for me? There are 12 Victor-class ships. You can see a poster back there of the layout of the design that Dr. Frank used to go on. He was cleared to go on. First time he went on was during Bobby Kennedy, right before the assassination. But they have 12 ships, and each ship has 2 ships that stays in the astral beyond the physical. So nothing will ever happen to those ships. The governments tried to find them. They announced where they were. And needless to say, they didn't find them. They have some great stories. They tried to get Dr. Frank. When Valiant Thor comes to pick him up after the inner circle meetings in Vegas, they followed him once in a car, and they have a water car, and I think Vice Commander Teal picked him up, and they drove down a dead end, and she pushed a button, they went invisible. The little man in black was like, where did they go? They were just sitting there laughing. But each of these ships are at various locations around the Earth, and there's a book out of print called Spacecraft Over Earth, and they've been there for various lengths of time, some for over 5,000 years in that location, that service. A lot of the Super Federation group has been in service to this planet for many, many thousands of years to reestablish the light, to bring us into liberation. And the prayer they say, and I'm going to ask you to repeat with me if you feel it, is going to go as follows. Eternal Mother, Father, God, Creator of the universe, hear this day my petition. Surround me now with your divine ring of fire, the fire of your protection, the fire of abundance, and the fire of complete healing. I now command the hand of Almighty God on my behalf. In the blessed name of the Creator and the Sovereign Son, Jesus Christ, so be it. Amen. That's the first ring of fire, and we're going to do another ring of fire a little bit later. So this is my first time. We've got a little projector here, and I'm going to hopefully be able to work this out. So pyramids, I'm really into pyramids, obviously. Working with Fred Bell and making these systems my whole life, it's been very exciting, and we'll talk a little bit about the pyramid energy. It's a pretty basic, simple energy. All shapes have vibration, and the pyramid energy provides the very balanced level of life force energy for the planet Earth. Each planet has its own shape of pyramid, different number of sides and a different angle based on the specific gravity and the consciousness that exists on that planet, what plane and dimension it's on. I'm here to declare that the time for the liberation of humanity has come. Our personal salvation and the plan of redemption is upon us. All seasons begin with you. We will now do it right. We'll remove our self-created shackles of ignorance, superstition, vanity, greed, lust, attachment, anger, impatience, and especially fear. It's time for us to step up, wake up, look in the mirror, and move beyond our human drama and our petty emotions, and to begin to work together. And that's an important aspect of this talk, is to work together. I call this Earth's cosmic heritage and spiritual destiny. And she's on her knees. And if you go to the Great Pyramid, you have to get on your knees to go through into the King's Chamber and the Queen's Chamber. And he who exalts himself shall be humbled. He who humbles himself shall be exalted. This information presented to you today is designed to help people to understand what is being called not only the event, but other aspects of the liberation process as well. And through a process called disclosure of purposefully hidden truths. The event reveals the plans to arrest the world's political and financial criminals at large and the enforcement of what's called the Galactic Codex during a worldwide arrest action being called the event. The event will be initiated by benevolent spiritual ET forces. Now, that's Cobra's take on it. The aspect of the actual arrest process is remained to be seen. And I'm not exactly sure if it's all going to go down as planned. I know there are plans. It's basically, they're working through a holographic process to give us information that will help us understand in a positive, safe way, without violence and chaos, if at all possible. Most of the chaos is orchestrated by the cabal. We all know the false flags, the racial wars they just had, that are, the police, the over militarization of the police and that type of thing, is what's causing it. We have a television, a media program, which is not only sending subliminal seduction messages visually, but also there is an entrainment of the plasma scalar field network, which works on a implant matrix. And I learned about that when I was about 22 in the desert. This is in '82, before Bill Cooper came out. A military guy like Corey, who broke his mind control and was going to go to Leavenworth, and the Pleiadians came in, taught me some things and showed me about how this program runs. And it's basically, it works through the ego and the consciousness, and it's as Cobra says, it's an artificial intelligence, and as you raise your vibration, energy focuses on you from the group. So everyone's kind of implanted, and if this guy comes up and starts speaking the truth, the implant matrix goes, if it can't get him, it gets everyone around him. And many of you know your family, you think you're nuts and all that kind of stuff. So there's an aspect of that that is real. Now, Cobra maintains that there are 2 implants, one in the head and one in the solar plexus, that can't be removed, that you can calm them, and by being in nature and by living a virtuous life and having a good focus of consciousness. But it maintains that those always exist in people, but I'm not sure that's true across the board. There's also entity attachments that Corey will probably tell us about. That might be a good question for some of us. But I know that the event is hoped for, it's longed for. It seems logical to me, and I really feel that it's something that we can work for and support, and that's what this disclosure process is. And it may not be where we have to go, hey, maybe we just move away from the whole system and they have no one to control. Maybe the policemen quit, the military guys quit, who knows how it's going to happen. The victory of the light was one thing that gentleman told me. When I went out into the desert, there was a V placed in the snow above Gabriel Green's house. Many witnesses, we were there and saw it, and that big V, I said, what's that for? And he goes, that's for the victory of the light. And so 30 years later, Cobra mentioned that, and it kind of, oh, well, that makes sense. So that's what I call my radio show. Cobra and I, there's nothing wrong between me and Cobra. I've just decided I don't want to do the radio shows and to prepare for change. I was advised to step back from that. The political aspect, and it took a lot of my time. It was very stressful. And I've been asked to focus more on the healing and the technology, which I'll be sharing with you today. My personal message is a revelation of truth that will be startling to many who are unaware. Others will already know this information and be bolstered by the confirmation of the details presented. This revelation is filled with hope and encouragement and a promise of an expansion of love that is creating a respect for all life streams on this planet. I can tell you now that we're not alone. We never have been alone and never will be alone. The time of the quarantine is over. The forces of love and light are here, and we may partake in this process as much or as little as we like. This process will transform our earth into a jewel of radiant splendor, worthy of our love for all of creation. We as a society are now awakening to the reality that we are not alone and must now take responsibility for our planet. In order to restore peace on Earth, we must act as stewards who respect nature and will fundamentally alter our societal infrastructure to reflect this respect for nature. Through this process of awakening to the curve of spiritual development and the truth consciousness, we are now in a process of naturally and organically transforming our thinking and removing these blocks that are within us. And this is an individual thing, and no one's going to tell you how to do it. And I can tell you that there's some techniques to develop yourself. The benevolent space family are key to the Earth's destiny. That's a picture of Billy Meyer's Pleiadian birthday cake ship from the Pleiades. When I was 17 years old, Wendell Stevens, the people who, if you ever saw that original book, Contact from the Pleiades, the square one with the pictures, Lee and Britt Elders came to Fred's house. Jim Delatoso was hanging out, and I was getting Billy Meyer's contact notes at 17 on, remember mimeograph? You used to smell it. So I was reading these contact notes when I was 17 years old. I was reading about, you know, the planet that has all women. They got fed up with men and wars, and they have men kind of for breeding, and of course the prehistoric planets, and I was seeing these pictures and stuff. So I was involved in this movement very early. I didn't really understand it all and what it's come forward. I've grown a lot through the association of my mentors. And this is the real secret space program that's kind of going on. Corey is revealing a tremendous, we're right in the middle of the clashing of the two secret space programs that have been going on. The government and the Nazi and that whole thing is showing how intelligent we are as a species, our capabilities, but it's also showing how irresponsible we are. We have a very warlike, competitive nature, and this has been a problem on this planet for a long time. And there was one of the Galactic Federation scientists named Soltec discovered in 1979 a certain radiation from the sun that's been causing this, and they've been putting in benevolent gases into our atmosphere, namely boron, it's a green gas, and some other stuff. And of course, there's been some negative, Corey revealed to me yesterday, some negative ETs are also putting gases in the air. We know about chemtrails, and that's coming from the vegans. But on the right is Valiant Thor, and next to him is Commander Dawn, and next to him is Jill. And I met the girl Jill at Dr. Frank Strange's meeting. And she was sitting there, and she was just smiling at me like, "Oh, good for you, Rob, you recognize me." And I was like, and my girlfriend was at the time was like, "Stop looking at her." And she hasn't changed a bit. And I had some brief conversations with her. She goes, "Well, what do you think about the money in the SAR?" And I hadn't really thought about it. I was like, I'm not into that. I'm not following that, and the money trail. But she kind of made me think about it a little bit. There have been other ETs that have come to those meetings, and they come and go. But it was one of my meetings with a ET on the Earth, and she was just so friendly and so warm and kind. And there was this like electric energy going on because it was surrounded by the inner circle, and I'm not going to go, "Look, there's Jill from the front cover." But this is in Howard Menger's house. Now, in 1991, I took Howard Menger, Colonel Wendell Stevens, Zachariah Sitchin, and I wanted to take Frank. I didn't take Frank. I didn't want to take Zachariah at the time because I didn't resonate with him at all. But the guy that promoted the tours was Jewish, and Zachariah was really hot then. And so, guess what? I sat between Howard and Colonel Stevens on a plane flight from New York to Los Angeles. I was in disclosure heaven, and Howard was a tall glass of water when I met him. Him and his wife Connie had tremendous experiences in the early days, and Howard had a unique understanding of electromagnetism. He just understood it. He was an electrician and made signs, and he got this impression to make a spaceship, a UFO, a small one, and he got together the parts and he made it, and he turned it on, and boom, it went 400 miles from his place in Pennsylvania and ended up in a farmer's field in a cornfield in Ohio. And the military guys got a hold of it, and they opened it up. It had Earth-based parts. And so some of them were pretty exotic and rare, and they figured out where he lived, and they came to his house, and they go, "You made this?" And he goes, "Yeah, I did." And they go, "Well, we'd like you to make that." He didn't have the guidance system. He didn't have the MERV or the internal guidance. It just, he said, "Rob, it's actually, gravity is a push, not a pull from the center." So what happened was he just released the push, and the Earth rotation, without gravity, we'd be flying around here. We're going so fast. So it just flew off. So in 1951, he was sent to Colorado Springs, and he said they made a small one. They put a guidance system in them, and they put it up and made a couple different versions, and they bought it down, and then they made a man-sized one, and they went up, and they came down, And he said, all I want is no taxes for life. I want a Social Security check and keep that. And they said, after it landed, they said, thank you very much. We'll see you later. And he had he got no check, no acknowledgement. And in fact, and he was no spring chicken, he'd already had these encounters with different ET groups and going on board and stuff, and they had landed in the early days, and he got clothes for them and stuff, and I'll tell you a story about that. But he was going back, he knew enough to handcuff his briefcase to his wrist, and in the middle of nowhere, somewhere like Texas, back then, he was in a gas station, and those are the days when they pumped your gas, and he went to the bathroom, and there was the gas station attendant pumping gas, and for whatever it was in 1951, a Men in Black vehicle, probably Chevy or whatever it was, comes up, and one of them stands out and shows he has a gun, and the other one comes towards him with a hypodermic needle. And I go, Harold, I said, Howard, were you scared? He goes, hell no, Rob, I landed at Iwo Jima. He goes, what did you do? I blocked the hypodermic and I beat the crap out of that agent. And he made it home. So, and they looked over at the guy with the gun, and the guy just went, nope, and he went on. So Howard has some unique experiences. When he started to have contacts in the later 50s, in what's called the space, Louis calls it the Rama mission. And this is where you, me, everyone is available for contact. And I call that the real secret space program, because the government is a mess, as we know. I mean, it's really sad that the benevolents have to work with the secret space program. I mean, the way they treat Corey, it's just disgusting. And they're all damaged individuals, and we have to bless them and forgive them, but they all need to go where Gonzalez went and get that little gold Mayan thing around their head and get healed. Let's pray for their healing now. Thank you. But Howard had started to have these experiences, and I'm kind of a defense guy. One of my previous lifetimes, I held a sword to Nero's throat to end the carnage. So I'm like, I want to get on this stuff. So some of the stories that I remember that Howard told me on the plane was involving that type of activity. So an FBI agent came to his house and said, if you continue these contacts and da-da-da-da. He was on a show called Long John Neville. It's kind of like George Norrie of the day, the first metaphysical radio show back in I think it was even the late 40s or whatever he started, but he was having these contacts with them in the 50s, and he told me they landed and they wanted to get some earth clothes. So how do you do the size? And he was a tall guy, and so he didn't have a tape measure, so he put his arm around their waist, his arm around their wrist, and start doing this. And the girls were all excited to get the new earth clothes. And so he'd gotten them all the clothes, and they went to, the high heels they wouldn't even wear. And then he got to the bra. You could hear all this protest. The bras came over the curtain. That's where the no bra movement. We can thank the Venusians for that. They started. Woo! Some interesting little stories there in the history of the benevolence Earth-based mission here, and there's millions of them now, I'm pretty sure, that have taken up residence here, and many of them are subjected to our laws of aging and so forth like that, and some of them are not. And we owe a great deal of respect and gratitude to those beings in service who are coming down here. And a lot of you actually are probably from there too, and you have veils over your memory of who you were and where you are. In fact, we're all kind of cosmic beings. So our souls are eternal. Everyone's immortal. Let's get that straight. There's no like, you don't have to become ascended to be immortal. You are immortal. But to remain and have a continuity of lifetime is something different. So let's get back to the FBI agent who comes and threatens Howard. Well, this is Howard. That guy gets in the car, and Howard just runs to his barn, gets in his car, follows that guy all the freaking way to Brooklyn. Follows him up to his walk-in. The guy's about to close the door. He kicked it with his foot and goes, I know where your family lives, and I'm going to take them out. The agent was like, ah. And that's your FBI. I hear they're changing their tune. Stephen Greer was outed on my radio show by Andrew Basago. He saw him here with William Stillings and Barack Obama some years ago in the secret space program. And, Andrew Basago is also an insider in the secret space program. He's kind of not in this dialogue, but he's a real deal. I sense a tremendous amount of integrity and honesty in him. And you can research his tapes and stuff. He's running for president. Obviously, timelines have changed, and he's not going to become president. But there's hopefully some good things coming in our next election. We have a prayer, another prayer that we'll do a little bit later. But this is Valiant Thor. He's quite handsome, and I did meet him once, and I remember it was at a rainbow gathering. Rainbow gatherings are pretty big for me. I met Babaji at one, and he was there with 4 other people. I remember thinking, that looks like Valiant Thor. He doesn't have a belly button. I looked at his belly button, but they did a trans imagery thing, and I just kind of forgot, and I actually focused on these 2 women, which were, one reminded me of my sister. You look at my sister. I mean, that's just amazing. The space family, the vibration, it was just like my sister Wendy, and I was talking with them, and I got this feeling that they were special. They're just a presence around them, and it was very special and sacred. And my human mind wanders, and I'm not always the most elegant, but they actually came to me twice at rainbow gatherings. So, and rainbow gatherings are these prayer and healing peace gatherings that started a long time ago, and they were designed to pray for world peace and healing for 7 days in the national forest. In the early days, it was very. First rainbow gathering was in Roseburg, Oregon, not too far from here. I rode a motorcycle up, and it had been raining, and my motorcycle was broken down, and so I just waited. And on 4th of July, I rode up on my motorcycle, and people were streaming out of there, wet and drowned like rats, a bunch of young hippies, and I go, everyone's leaving. The guy goes, don't worry, it's okay, keep going. So I'm in the big flatbed truck being taken. We got taken right to the prayer circle, and it had been raining, and as I got off the bus, the sun started to shine, and as my hands hit the circle, a giant Om happened. And so that was I go, this is the thing. And I had been working with Fred Bell. Fred Bell was a member of the Blue Lodge of Sirius, and I'm also a member of the White Lodge from Planet Earth. And he maintained that we were the ashram of the 7th ray in Laguna Beach, and that he was holding a vortex in place, and I was doing, we would have certain, and I'm not going to reveal these, they're just certain esoteric practices and metaphysical things that were part of this process. I'll tell you, one of them was we lit incense, because these dark entities and some of these other beings, they actually don't like incense. It actually has a smell they don't like. Here's another little secret. You want to calm and focus your mind. Yoga means union. Religion, religare, to reunite, from the Latin. That means we're reuniting with our parent source. We are connecting the rainbow bridgehead to our own I am presence with our own silence and our own awareness. This process, all religions, all disciplines of yoga are designed for one pointed concentration. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Hare Krishna, Hail Mary, full of grace. These repetitions are to bring your mind to one pointed focus. One pointed focus. And if you can focus on something, eventually the duality disappears and you're in one, and you empty yourself and you connect. And there's another way of knowing things. It's not in our reason in our head. We have these points, and one of them is called feeling. So if we unite our thoughts and our feelings together, we can achieve this one-pointed concentration. When we enter into the silence and we expand our Merkaba, or our aura field, we have a unique experience, and I won't tell you how or what that is, but you will gather information very quickly. It's called the science of Kriya Yoga. And here in 1978, how many have read Autobiography of a Yogi? One of the greatest spiritual books. I really enjoyed that. And even in that book, Yogananda did not recognize, or was it Larhart? But I think it was Yogananda did not recognize Babaji the first time. And I certainly didn't. This kid was pulling me, goes, "The master wants to see you. The master wants to see you." I was like, "The master?" Fred Bell was kind of my teacher. And and he was just like, looked at me and like, "Okay, I'll go see the master. Who's that?" And I went inside this tent, and there was another sister there, and there was Babaji. And this is not Hari Khan Babaji, the other one who was another avatar, possibly. But there are what they call two deathless kind of guardians for the planet, or actually four. It's Babaji and Mataji, and then there's another one. They call them the Lords of Karma. I'm not really exactly sure. I don't really know the hierarchy of the spiritual government of this planet, of the light forces, but there he was. His hair was bald kind of back to here, and I had used to scream listening to Supertramp, "Babaji, won't you come to me?" When I was really young, I used to love that song, and had a deep longing to connect with him. And here he is, and I don't even recognize him. I'm looking at him like, super skinny. He looked like he's 18 or 19 years old, and his waist came down very small, and he was sitting in a full lotus, which is kind of the feet tucked up, or the feet tucked up like that. Now, I was 17 or 18. I could pull off a full lotus in my sleep. I was a little more muscular, but he was like full lotus. And I go, "Okay," and he says, "I want to show you something." And he went like, Now, that was him communing with his lover, but I was from Laguna Beach, and I hate to admit this, but I thought, "Is that guy gay?" But his eyes went back, and they went back again. I mean, this guy's eyes went way back, and he did the breath of fire. Now, and I'll show you the breath of fire real quick here. It's kind of the opposite of the Green Acres. Bringing the chest in, it's when you breathe, your diaphragm is the only muscle that should move. So it's in through the nose, but you're looking up here. Energy follows thought was one of Fred Bell's favorite taught. So if we place our attention on our third eye and our pituitary gland, we will bring light there. And when we hyperventilate, we're bringing in the light of the Creator in, and we can also do it slowly in the Kriya Technique, which is to breathe in very, very slowly through each chakra into the earth, and then exhale out. It's called the circulation of the light. And you can eventually go really slow. And we sometimes need our mind to work with that. Eventually we go to the no mind, and we just are there. We just sit in suspended animation, and certain times I can go, I'm better than others, but you won't see me breathe. It's such a slow and subtle breath. It can take a minute or two for one inhale or two, and some yogis can take, a day for an inhale or two. If you practice that, it's a way to balance the life force field in your body and to invoke the presence of God. And your intent is very important in this. It's how you think and feel in the moment during this practice. And if you have a longing and a yearning for the Creator, that's a good thing. Chakras are force centers at etheric levels which direct prana or life stream into our body. And each endocrine gland has a chakra. The adrenals are in the back, but their chakra is at the root. That's your fight or flight. You have your sexual glands, and they resonate. All chakras have all colors for those who can see chakras in the auric field. And you have the spleen chakra. It can be in different sizes for different people. Then you have a kind of a digestive chakra, which is like a yellow and an orange stone and that kind of thing. Then you have the middle of the spectrum. That's green. And that is your thymus gland. Everybody goes, well, that's a heart chakra. Well, it's associated with the heart chakra. So you have 7 notes to the musical scale, 7 colors to the rainbow, 7 chakras. Now, there's 13 in the octave. So those are actually the organ meridians, all right? So the heart chakra is here, but it feeds the rose quartz frequency of pink to the heart. So each chakra has a major color and a energy field, but it has a sub-frequency as well. Now the third eye, that's not your pineal gland. That's your pituitary gland. And the little kumkum dot of the Hindus is red because when you wake up in the morning, get going, you're working with the sun spectrum. The sun goes through the spectrum from red to violet. That's called the phase shift of the hydrogen atom. And that's why you have jet lag. We don't know what it's like in a blue sphere billions of miles away, but there's some kind of jet lag, I'm sure, between the different frequencies. But for us, when I flew from Japan to, it was a long flight through 4 time zones over 3 days. It was a very challenging thing, and if you have some of this technology like the receptor and stuff, it can help focalize your energy center. So to be aware that you have these chakras, and it's called the breath form. You all have a breath form, and if you focus and be very clear as you breathe, and if you put your light on the Creator and enter into the silence, you can touch a very magical, mystical place. When I was very early, I studied Carlos Castaneda and did certain natural power plants were designed to stop the world. I don't recommend it now. Astral energies are changing with the blue spheres and the shielding here. You're not going anywhere. The karma's right here, right now. So you just need to deal with everything. But back then, you could get out a little into the astral plane and have some unique experiences. And one of them that I had was I realized I was able to see that we have these different points on our auric field, or toroid. If you look at the toroid, it actually looks like the Anu, and we're going to see that. I'm going to better move through some pictures here because I've been yapping. But the Venusians have several techniques. They had formal contacts with her grandfather. Yeah, and they had lunch with Richard Nixon and Mame, and they thought he was quite charming, and they invited him to stay for 3 years, and he came and went, dematerialized as he wished. And Dr. Frank Strange was talking about him, and he eventually met him at the Pentagon where he was staying. Now, Dr. Frank Strange was a Secret Service agent in the paper hanging in the artificial paper. And one day, one of the people was going to shoot him, and a 14-foot being with a sword appeared in the room to the guy that was going to shoot him and went like this. And the guy who was going to shoot Dr. Frank freaked out, dropped his gun, and went into the insane asylum and eventually passed away. So Dr. Frank was kind of picked, a very beautiful spiritual guy. There's a movie out by Craig Campobasso called Stranger at the Pentagon. It's kind of a B-movie little thing. It was a short thing, crowdfunded, and it's basically was a preamble, and at some point it may be made into a super motion picture. Be nice to see that. Jerry Bruckheimer, he's been approached by a couple of people, but they want to change it. They want to take out the message of the Christ and all that stuff, that the Venusians kind of focus around the spiritual community and understanding of the infinite light of the Creator. Was really happy with Corey's last two amazing posts where they're talking about the Creator now, and we're seeing the benevolent blocking of these hostile groups that dare to interfere, the Wrangler who's just messed up, and thank goodness Corey's protected. I want to thank the Galactic Federation and the Blue Spheres. And as Corey says, nothing can happen to him that he doesn't authorize. So we all do create a reality. We hear that from the Law of One, so I need to realize that when I get really angry. I created that. No, I didn't. There's Valiant Thor. Dr. Frank said once they changed his room at the Rio, and Valiant Thor didn't know where he was. And so I had to go downstairs and to talk to a girl, and goes, where's Dr. Frank Strange? And the girl just passed out, just boom, dropped. Another time, one of the girls was carrying a drink, and Val went by, and she just went, whole pile of drinks. Val just kind of looked. He didn't turn around and smiled. But he has a unique personality. He likes to drive really fast. One time he was speeding like 130 or 40, and he got pulled over by a cop and pretended to sign it and just did the thing. And they sent the cop a check because he had to pay for the ticket. But, some interesting stuff. What is the whole truth in regards to the Earth's history and our interaction with other beings and dimensions? Like we said, there are many purposefully hidden truths that many others and myself have been tasked to expose to the world at large. This process will transform the Earth. Yeah, I already said that. There's tons of evidence, folks. You got the internet. You've seen the pictures here on the slideshows, and we're going to get into again, but there's tons of evidence. There's Mother Mary and a little spaceship with the sweet baby Jesus there. The story goes, according to different sources, Dr. Frank had the history coins. He would go into Victor 1, and they would have all of these coins he could take out and actually see, and he was very biblically oriented. He was a theologian, and they would tell him when he's speaking, they go, Dr. Frank, don't preach so much, just share the information. He goes, hallelujah. He says, he would go, Valiant Thor told me not to preach. Hallelujah, thank you, Jesus. But he told us that the story of Christ was there were some shepherds there, and he said that the light came over the shepherds, and a soft light came down. He says all the animals, the sheep became quiet, the dogs looked up, and two beings appeared to the shepherds and said, be not afraid, be of good cheer. Today a Savior is born. Or I don't think they used the word Savior. They said whatever it was. They said there's a like this, and they said follow us, we'll lead you there. And it wasn't too far away, but he had seen this many times, and he was in there, and Vice Commander Teal, and they were wearing robes and kind of cloaked. They were like 9 or 12 feet tall, and they dematerialized, and they dematerialized out. But Vice Commander Teal, he'd seen it like 3 or 4 times already, and Vice Commander Teal says, Dr. Frank, look at that being on the left. And he looked and goes, "Oh, it's a woman." And she said, "Mm-hmm." So the women are very much involved in our Benevolent Space Families contact. A lot of the contacts are male. They do protect the women. It's a chivalry thing, but there's plenty of goddess energy going on. There we go. These guys know what's going on. Some of them, they've been hiding this stuff. They've been gathering it, and you know, you think about the problems we have. Imagine the Inquisition, 400 years. That's some serious torture time. This planet's been through a lot of things, and again, with our knowledge and our awareness, we need to turn it around. We do have ancient records of the bad guys. That's not exactly accurate, but Dr. Frank said that there is an entrance at the poles there. I don't think it's that big, but in Lemuria, the sinking of Lemuria, King Atlan from Atlantis sent his daughter, who was Queen Maya, to the Central Americas to reestablish the teachings of truth, and many of them did change and ascend. Some went to the inner earth, and we have evidence that confirms what Dr. Frank Strange was saying 20 years ago, that some groups were taken off and live in other worlds. And now we have the Mayan coming back to Earth and helping us, and they actually achieved an ascension and a purity and a consciousness of their race at that time. There's now the feminine vortex has been activated. We were in a masculine vortex in the Himalayas, and it's been shifted now to Central or to South America. And the center of that is the Cintamani Stone, which Louis Martins, on a lot of people are in different places. I was in the King's Chamber in Egypt on 2012-21 with Cobra Group, and Louis was down at the Tahama Mountain, where they had moved this Cintamani Stone, which came from the Super Federation. 40 ascended masters from different groups had placed this here many, I'm not sure, thousands of years ago, and it was placed beneath the Gobi Desert near the Himalayas there, what they call Shambhala the Lesser. So there's these different outposts of the non-material and material beings that have been administrating and trying to hold the light here. And there's also, of course, been the various other groups going on. But the feminine vortex is now keyed into Tahama with the Cintamani Stone acting as a downstepper to change the vibrations of the earth. And the Cintamani Stone, according to Cobra, was a planet in Sirius that was intended, a higher vibration that was intended to become physical. And the purpose of the earth in this experiment is to transpose angelic functions into the flesh. We're to raise our consciousness, and we're going through tremendous stresses, but it's giving us compassion. We will eventually become great teachers one day, supposedly. So that's maybe a carrot in front of us. Maybe we're all just going to go to the Galactic Insane Asylum. Yes, we're ascending now. Who knows? Right? But there's a sun disk that was in Lemuria. And the sun disk, and there may be several of them according to Michael, there may be different ones, but the sun disk was misused in Atlantis times and did cause the wobble. And I'm not sure, I think that was 10,000 years ago in the final sinking of Atlantis. Atlantis, one of the primary sinkings, one of the problems was 100,000 years ago. So we're speaking in very broad, long terms. So the exact details of this galactic history is always open for debate and may not be revealed to us completely until we can read the Akashic records. But that may take some time, because Dr. Frank said that the history coin just says he went to see the Last Supper, and it's in real time. You can't like go fast forward to who knocked over the salt. But he said there's a lot of women, mostly women. And the Garden of Gethsemane was outside this house, and there was an upper room there, and we heard some other interesting things in the inner circle meetings. But the sun disk, according to Louis, now exists beneath, very close to the island of Somme where Chase and I went, and beautiful. I just love that lake, and it's so calm, and traveling on the boat, the vibe up there is so high. You're at like 14,000 feet, and it's just beautiful. And they don't even need a dome. It's not like a glass dome, it's just energy. And there's the Master Sorames is there, and I'm not sure I have that picture in this, but the Dead Sea Scrolls, Dr. Frank Strange's got some of the information from Valiant Thor, and it has writings of the life of Christ. In fact, the Rig Rajur Samavedas talk about the Rishis, which equals the Pleiadians in references to the Viyamanas. So we all know there's been other contact here before the Muhammad Accords. Does anyone recognize that picture? Book of Mormon, folks. Anyway, all the historical texts have references to these interactions. I won't go too much in the banking system here, but it looks like that sheep's figured it out, and I think he's a conspiracy theorist. There's a central banking system that's corrupt. Look at that bad boy. I wonder how they kept that from us. Yeah, there's some really tall beings. Zawi Hawass, one of the Cabals, he was run out on a rail. The guy that took us to Egypt, his grandfather, Zawi Hawass, came on. They used to run the camels next to the Great Pyramid. And Syed, you might have seen him on the Prepare for Change Victor Blighter on Facebook. His grandfather saw Zawi Hawass and just went after him and started beating him with a stick back in the old days. But he stole a lot of stuff, and they have hidden stuff. There's underground roads that go from Saqqara. Saqqara was an initiation chamber. And there's giant sarcophagus in there, which aren't sarcophagus. They were places for initiates. They would sit in there for 3 days. They'd close it up, and if you entered the silence and you could, live without the breath, you used little air in your meditation, you would go through a series of initiations, and there's an underground tunnel system that goes directly underneath the pyramid. And you'd come up like they'd have some water underneath there. And all the alligators were well fed. But you would go in, you'd come up, and there'd be alligators if you had fear. Then you'd go in a room, and the water would fill up. And eventually you'd end up in the Great Pyramid, and there's 7 different rooms, and they account for the initiations. That little tub there had 2 purposes. One, it was like the Great Pyramid is a free energy device, and I won't go into that, but there was a track, what was it called? Tank tracks, treads in there, and it had a device, and there were a bunch of rubies and emeralds and diamonds, and it had different frequencies that it would tune to, and there was like a semi-nuclear energy thing, and the capacitance of the thing would change. The king's chamber would change, the queen's chamber would change, and it provided free energy, just radiated, and they had free energy in Egypt. They had televisions, they had lights, and as far as you could see, if you had a receiver, you had this free energy. And I don't know the exact timelines on this, but it was also used as an initiation room, and that tub had a device that would raise your vibration and make you young and healthy and kind of reestablish your ketones to your soul. And this wasn't done lightly, and it's not forced in this technology. Some of the Secret Space program, they force it without the spiritual balance. And the masters of wisdom always know they can read and see, and they look into the soul history and the present thought and intention before these initiations are given. There's some big boys fetch. The Anukai, I'm not really sure I buy that name, but It's like there's Buzz out there with his thing and the spaceships in the background. I was walking on the moon one day in the very merry month of May. And they he goes, Bravo Tango, they're the Santa Claus. Yeah, go back and pick up your rocks. Just continue picking up your rocks. But I'm not sure if those are reptilians that didn't want them there and kicked them off, but like Corey said, but they were doing other things on the moon. We're in the thing. Oh, there's the secret space program. There's the one that crashed. Let's go get it. We don't want the Russians or anyone. They were very serious about getting it. There's the tech boys. That's the outer hull. The core had been ejected. You saw it deep. There's maybe your brother or your cousins in there. Can't talk about it, but they were up there looking down. Don't fall in. There's the staging, the special ops. Lots of money goes into the secret space program. There it is again. And let's just blow the mofo up. You can see how much C4 will we need so no one can find that. About 10 pounds. No, we're going to need 100. They just love that stuff. So everyone's watching that thing. That's pretty impressive, but not very friendly for the fish and the rest of the ice there. There we go. We're going to go into some of the secret space program technology. That's HARP. This was given to me, like I said. This is the Philadelphia experiment. I don't know, worshiping the black sun, the portal, whatever their myths and stuff are. And then, of course, this is in HARP. If you'll notice up here in the right-hand corner, if you've seen on my website, Cobra has this, the quantum flux resonator, and that kind of shape of the horn is, this picture might have cut it short here, but there's a little metal thing there that they were attenuating sound and some high frequency stuff and the harp. So they're creating all this vampire holes in the lower astral plane for these beings and other dimensions to come through, like the Eye of Mordor. So you have this implant scalar field planetary enslavement network. And it's been used to further the wealth power of a small number of people, the breakaways, and they affect a type of mind control. It's a real deal. And it works through Satan, your foods that you're eating, your corn syrup, your fluoride, your vaccinations. And, we don't have to go into... There's an actual harp field in Alaska. Does anyone notice what those are? Those are actually pyramids. Those are pyramids. So the pyramid, here's Bryce Taylor. I talked to her once for a short time to thank her for her service, but she was a mind-controlled slave and slept with almost every single one of those people. Bob Hope thought he owned her, but he was actually owned by Henry Kissinger. And he took her to the SALT talks when she was 14. They dressed her up and took her out of her home, deprived her of food, electroshocked her for a couple days, took her out of school, and she sat there and and she said, these mind controls, she could, hit Kissinger, go, page 42, what does that mean? And so she would give him information. She had sex with Jack Kennedy. She called him Jack Fee. So the Kennedys were no choir boys, but when they found out what was happening, they didn't want to sell the entire planet down the river. And the main thing was they wanted to, they were going to break up the Federal Reserve, and that was a no-no. So that was probably the final nail in his coffin. But the Kennedy boys were old money from drug running. I mean, alcohol. So they had insider trading, and they were in on the cabal and all that. And they played around, and I'm not sure, Jackie might have been a mind control too, but she was given to Onassis, who is one of the world's largest drug runners for many years in this boat. But that book you can probably get online or buy it on eBay if you can find it. Very good book, really will detail the drug running of the Clintons in Mena, Arkansas. She went to meetings there, and the Clintons are just, I don't even know what these people are. They sell their soul, or if reptilians are, they push them out and they're just full-blown reptilians. And Hillary, I don't know what the clone is doing now, but there's some wild stuff out there. And it's funny to mock, but it's sad to see how many people, I mean, I don't know, Trump's not any better in my opinion. I think he's a huge wall. I'm going to build a huge wall. I mean, it doesn't make sense, and if that's the secret space program's choice, we're in trouble. I really hope that we're in for a September or October or November or December or before inauguration surprise. I'd like to see some takeover of the media and a serious positive arrest. There was a plane with 36 generals that went down back when Clinton was president. They were headed to arrest him, so they got to be careful. There's a lot of stuff that the plasma scalar field, the archons, and their super secret technology can know. And it really has to be done openly, honestly, and transparently. That's why I wonder about the financial reset. No one knows. I mean, what's the plan? Dinar, I have new Iraqi dinar. I'm holding on to my dong until the very end. I don't get it. We have to get it laid out, what it means, how it's going to happen, a reset. It can't just take place overnight and all of a sudden the people have to be made aware, and this is where honesty and transparency come in, I believe. There's HARP in action. That's the Yukon going to war. TR-3B. That's over the Montana Nazi base, one of their programs that looks like one Corey saw in the down in Antarctica now. That's a machine gun nest, and if you look in the right-hand corner, that's a door opening up in the mountain like James Bond. Da-da, da-da, da-da-da. There's the Aurora. There's a fake alien drone. That's actually that thing can probably read your credit card, your social security, look through your walls, watch you taking a doo-doo, tune into your internet, who knows? That thing's got every type of, watch me, probably hovering over Corey's house all the time. There's a crash disk again. That's the MHD. It seems to crash a lot. That's coming out of S4 and Dugway, I understand. Look, they even chemtrailed themselves there. There's the HARP programs. And with the revealing of this worldwide implementation of this technology, eventually it will proceed to public use, and we're going to liberate the planet with it. We just need to go. They've got it all in place, and then all of a sudden we just go, okay, you guys, you're on lunch break. And we'll take over Mars for you, and we'll start the good stuff and get that going. We're not preparing for disclosure. We're in it. Yeah, the wonderful future for humanity is here. We have to understand this. We have to process it and get over it and tell our sisters-in-law, do not vaccinate your baby. Do not. Oh, that'll be a great day. The Unholy Four. Yeah. Rumsfeld, Cheney. I mean, that's some serious stuff. There's a network of criminals. There's Nazis. See the guy on the right? That's the guy that revealed that the evidence that George Scherf is a Nazi. And that guy on the left with the ear, that's Hitler. Hitler was alive until some time ago. Everybody into the pool, okay? There we go. And here they are. There's Otto Skorzeny. George Scherf was his real name. There's his father, George Scherf. Martin Bormann, Hitler, Reinhard Gehlen. These are them older. They were part of the Nazi SS paperclip. They probably went down south, and some of them, looks like they all came up and wanted to live in America. But he outed him on his deathbed because George Bush Sr. stole 500 pounds of gold that Eva Peron had given Otto because she was his secret lover. Angela Merkel is Hitler's daughter, by the way. There we go. You have royal families and all that stuff, and that needs to go away. We don't need anything. We'll never be royal. I'm not going to be your queen bee. We don't need that stuff. We crave a different kind of buzz. Oh, here we go with the favorite pizza in Germany and Hofgarten. Let me help you out. Martin Bormann, Reinhard Gellen, Barbara Walker-Bush, Otto Skorzeny, our beloved Joseph Mengele. And this looks like George Bush, doesn't it? But that's actually George Bush Sr. Probably the president of his or something. But that's George Sr. Germany, he was about 19. That's, I think, 1938 photo. And how they came in was Prescott Bush. Oops. Flame is out. Prescott Bush was sent as a spy by Tesla, by Hitler, to get the information from Tesla. So that's what bought them here. And of course, and an interesting story, Skorzeny was the one who killed killed Tesla. Him and another guy put a pillow over his head and sick stuff, but Hitler wanted to know if he had a really large penis, as rumored, so his pants fell down, and I mean, they took all of his technology at the time. At the same time, his Colorado Springs was raided with all of the free energy devices. So Tesla was a good guy and would not give them the Philadelphia experiment. Tesla and Einstein refused to work on the Philadelphia experiment because it was unsafe. They weren't able to protect the people on the ship, and a guy named von Neumann said, "We're going to do it," and they did it without it. And afterwards, in the confusion, they bought the main devices back. They duplicated them in the Montauk experiments, but the main devices, that guy Skorzeny, they just came in some military gear and loaded it up in the confusion. They took it off the ship, and the Nazis stole it right out from underneath the military that night. And they were peeling the bodies off the ship. So, I just use this one now. Anyway, you got the personal revelation contact. That's Dr. Frank and me. Frank was so sweet. He was just a wonderful person, not like me, stressed. He had a meeting, and he would just greet you with so much joy and love in his heart. He was a very special man. He would go on Victor 1 at will. His first time on board Victor 1 was Bobby Kennedy pulled up 3 days before his death, and he said he was small. He said his neighbors were, he says you looked out in the door, there's someone mowing the lawn, the neighbor out there picking up the newspaper and curlers, and there's Bobby Kennedy coming up with a full crew, full presidential limousines, police cars. His whole street was cordoned off, and he opened the door, and Bobby Kennedy goes, "Dr. Frank Strange?" He says, "Strangers." "I'm Bobby Kennedy. I want to know what Valiant Thor is. I want to know who killed my brother." And he's like, "Would you like to come in?" He goes, "Oh, yeah. And he came in. He says, "I understand you know this Valiant Thor. You're the only person who knows how to contact him and wants to know where he is. And I want to know where he is, and I want to know who killed my brother." And he says, "Well, I don't know where he is right now, but if you write a letter to him, I'll take it," and he'll get, "I don't have time for a letter. I don't write letters." He goes, "Well, then this conversation's over. You can head out the door." "Okay, I'll write a letter." So he went over and sat down at his desk and wrote a letter. And shortly after, Valiant Thor came in and picked it up and just held it to his head and dematerialized out. And he told Frank that he did meet with him in the hotel room, and Bobby was, of course, very paranoid. Of course, there's lots of... He took in the thing, turned on the radio, ran the shower, ran the sink, and they had a conversation. And Valiant Thor told me, he said, "There's forces aligned against you. It's very dangerous. They may take your life, and I recommend that you don't." Bobby thought he was trying to dissuade him. And Frank got his first trip aboard Victor 1 a couple days later, and they went down to San Felipe. And if you've ever been down there, there's a little it's the end of the inlet there on the Sea of Cortez, and they went around the corner, and the boat stopped in a little, right there you could see everything behind in a little door, and every contactee says it's a unique experience when you just see a door open up and you look right there and there's nothing around it. But the Victor class ship was there. He went on board for the first time and went through a decontamination process, which is, he says it's kind of like walking through a heavy magnetic field, and it pulls out probably all your implants and that kind of stuff. And they took him up, and they were all gathered in the upper salon watching the speech of Kennedy right before he got shot. And right before he got shot, Commander Teal turned and said, "Oh my God, no." And she turned around, and of course Bobby died that day. That was his first trip aboard Victor 1. And he's had many others. It's pretty interesting. They had a toilet, and he goes, "I need to go." I go, "I need to go in there." So he goes in there, and there's like no toilet paper or anything. And he goes, she telepathically said to him, "Dr. Frank, you need some help?" She said, "Yes." "Push that button on the left." And I love Asia. The little toilet seats that come out, that's what they had. That little thing goes, he said, the little thing came out and sprayed some air and sprayed some more and then perfumed him, and he was done. And then she said, "Did everything come out okay?" They have some pretty funny stuff. And his favorite meal was spaghetti and meatballs, but they replicate it so no animal is killed. It's just for flavor and stuff. But they're quite hospitable there. They have a steam room and a jacuzzi, and they do have night classes. So a lot of people get to go to night classes. So I made some requests, and while Dr. Frank was still alive, I was given a couple memories when I woke up. And Dr. Frank told a story about his father was super religious too. And he told a story, and it ended with his father saying, "I'm gonna kick at the devil." And I woke up one morning, and I just said, "I'm gonna kick at the devil." My girlfriend was like, "Gonna what?" I was like, "Oh, it was on my night class. I had a Victor 1 experience." And then another time I woke up, and I had a vision. This vision of this beautiful woman just all of a sudden superimposed, and my eyes were open, and I saw my room. So I don't remember what happens up there. They said there's a veil, but they're doing a lot of training for us so that when the heliopause and the archons are removed, we'll understand it. A lot of us will, as quickly and as easily as we're able to assimilate it in our lifetimes or in our personal lives. We have issues and stuff, but some of us will immediately, It was just a series of revelations that will be maybe like when Corey woke up, who knows. There's Dr. Fred. He was on the cover of the Examiner. That is the interstellar time conversion process. There's crystals, counter-rotating fields. You see that little thing on the end there? That's actually the X1 healing machine, and it's part of the device that keeps the bodies intact when they accelerate the ship. They accelerate the field, and as a ship gets smaller on the physical plane and then appears on the astral plane, he said. And I'm not physical. There's Alex Collier. I love him. That's Gabriel Green. I had so many great experiences with him. He was very powerful, instrumental. He ran for president and gave his delegates to Kennedy with a guy named Daniel Fry. Again, one of the original contactees from the desert. He had a full library, and you go over to his house, and I drive in, and the battery goes dead in the car, and you coast down to the driveway. You walk in, and your girlfriend's hair will stand up like this. You'd be talking, and his wife's picture would tilt, or the television would turn on in the other room. And this is part of what I called my initiation, kind of just letting me know they're real, they have control over matter, and you don't focus on the psychic phenomena, just letting you know what's going on. Omnek, there she is. Corey didn't know who she was, but she came here from Venus when she was 4 years old, in Earth years, 300 years in the astral plane. She replaced a girl karmically from the Middle Ages when she was in. Her sister said, I'm that girl. She was her twin, and she got her head chopped off so she could continue the French Revolution. So she finished up her karma. I just talked to her the other day. She had a great conference she kind of seemed like she was retiring. As always, in my book was her answer, and she's kind of tired, but she found out she had a D3 deficiency. Her energy raised up, and her uncle Odin was able to telepathically communicate with her and told her that we're now in phase 3 of the raising of the vibration of the planet. It could last up to 3.5 years. It's all depending on humanity. Phase 4 will start after that, first contact, and probably the event after that. So it's up to us how we're going to move forward. That's Sir George King. I'm going to recommend you look up his name. He was an old contactee from the 50s, one of the direct voice channels of the benevolent ETs that were working with humanity, counter to all of this Nazi stuff that's what's going on. These are the Iargans here from the Vegan system. They were negative, and they're very positive, and there's a book called The UFO Contact from Iarga. Very cool to see how a superculture exists. They have a very little land mass, so they live in these other things. You got theories versus speculation. And of course, the Akashic Records with Valiant Thor. Again, there's the HARP program. Bermuda Triangle is a portal, and Commander Valiant Thor says that the ships, planes, and boats will reappear at some point in our future, and will tell us wonderful stories. They won't have this, of course, fall. I don't want to go into that one now. Oh, there's the Ascended Masters and the Plan of Redemption. That's Madame Blavatsky. We got Saint Germain Kutumi and Malaria. Yeah, that's a master on the first ray of will. That is a picture taken from a Palladian spaceship, and that's Christ at the moment of the decision. That's supposedly Joseph Arimathea, and that's Saint John the Divine. Prepare for Change was an effort that we had after Cobra's Renaissance Conference. We had a bunch of people to make these different groups, and I was in my own thing, and Cobra wanted Alexandra Metters to create it because she knew what she was doing, and some other people tried, and it just was difficult. No, they couldn't get the content out. There was like a lot of politics. So when people aren't talking and know each other, there's a lot of egos and stuff. So Cobra asked me to step in, and I wrote some content. It's on my site intact. They've changed it. I asked them not to change my words and just leave that I'm the author, but that wasn't honored, so I stepped back. They're well intended. I love the Prepare for Change people. It's a good reblog site. We were intending it for it to become more active with writing and information. There's a few people in there that are doing that, and one of my favorite people over there is, we got Danelle, and some of the core group members are very positive. Eduardo, that dude can post. You ever get on this Prepare for Change on the Facebook? He got like 35,000 followers, and I don't know where he comes up with this stuff, but he's got some cutting edge stuff. A lot of it's political and stuff, but you want to get your pulse on what's going on, you can check that out. So the event is a shutdown of the Ponzi scheme fractional central banking system. It's really a world slavery debt system. So supposedly an arrest simultaneously of the worldwide criminals in the world's financial and political and military industrial complex. It seems like little bit by little bit, it's an attrition process. And maybe some of the big dogs will be arrested at once, but most of them are, just doing what they think is right. Stealing pensions. I mean, remember when the too big to fail? Oh my God. They're all just laughing gold. Hopefully we're going to get the emergency broadcast systems going. They'll explain and people will get it. But we have to remember, like Sai Baba says, help ever and hurt never. Or the law of manifestation ain't karma, a bitch. This is what Fred Bell, this is a quote from Semyasi, and what we feel, see, hear, and project through our neurologic system outward is a living condition of our reality. So as we think, what we do every day, it's not like The Secret. Everyone goes, made a dream board and go. They go to the dream board and go, I want a car, and leave it. That's not it. It's what you think over time. What are you thinking about every day over time? Where's your energy going? You know, are you working for planetary liberation? Are you consciously peaceful every day? How do you treat others? You know, I get very focused, and sometimes I don't have time and I can be short with people, but it's important to realize that what you feel and the intensity that you feel over time is important. So if you're frustrated all day long about things going on in the world, and then you spend 5 minutes of meditation, it doesn't really balance. You have to have a calm demeanor. You have to have an orientation of the divine. You have to give thanks to the Creator, whatever you conceive. Everyone thinks that it's like a long guy in a white beard. I'm convinced it's a black girl. Kali, you know, she's got a little foot. You know, there's this Trinity thing that goes on in all the world religions. So, and it's all kind of a symbol for the one reality. That guy's, I think his name is Frater Akkad. He's another ET that's at a secret government meeting. The reason they haven't landed yet will be explained. That was a cool one. I thought that looked like Cobra. Compression, victory of the light. The whole truth disclosure movement and transpurity to the new society, and we need a new world in a new way without those type of things. We got to end the ideas that suck. You know, let's get molested, right? We have to get rid of them and bring out these new healing technologies and these wonderful things that are available to us. This I want to talk about a little bit. There's a pyramid healing systems. This is Fred Bell's living room, and that's what these systems are about. We're going to connect them up later tonight. Around that pyramid, you're going to be able to see the technologies in action, and we're going to get a lot more lasers out, and you guys are going to go nuts in here and all these crystals, and that activates the scalar field energies. People want to know what a scalar field is. It's a non-Hertzian waveform that moves and through time and space. The Palladians, when they want to communicate with each other, use something like that at the back. That can use long distance. If they're on the Pleiadians and they want to communicate with someone here telepathically, they utilize those type of things. In early 80s, I saw some pictures. There was a solar tour of the galaxy by the Solar Cross. I had the original slides in a slideshow, but I was young and lost them. I should have kept them. There are pictures of one of the Pleiadian Satan's planet. They took us through various. You were in other areas. You knew that they weren't taken by a telescope, and they had a giant record room. They said, "This is our record room," and it was this huge room, and it was just filled with crystals. No, their records are all Akashic records. They take crystals from different planets, and so they're able to keep a good record. I don't know who could do that. So what's taking place is the Metatronic values are being altered. Atomic structure of nature itself has happened. That was phase 1, and that's completed. We're already in a 4th density. We're not caught up yet. The angels called reapers. It describes, I did this some time ago, but that describes the archons and all that's going to take place, and no man knows the hour or whatever, but it might be coming soon. Gonzalez says that it's not imminent. The one that Gonzalez says in Corey's last post is not imminent. That's more like the re-altering of the Earth structure. There's another event, an Earth-based event that Cobra talks about that may take place sooner. So I don't really know, and I'm not sure. Cobra, no one knows. You know, man or angel do not know. So there's some interesting timing on this, and we'll just have to wait and see and wait patiently. And I hope I'm around, but you never know. They've had a lot of plans, and they thought something was going to happen, and this didn't happen. The different councils have moved on. It seemed there's a lot more focus now. There were the group that had been here, but in the last 50 years, a lot of groups have come here and are lending their help and light, some on scientific expeditions and others directly involved in the intervention. Okay, this is very important. It's the invocation of the light. And I'm basically going to describe it like this. A pond sends ripples out. Induction is ripples coming into a center. So you just hold your center, enter the silence with an attitude of reverence and communion, and cycle that energy up and down. And that is meditation. The other aspect is prayer, and that's talking to God. Ascension, as an individual soul that retains our identities on all planes throughout all times and all space, we're ever growing relationship to the One. We'll be conquering fear on the path from ignorance into light, and I'll share with you the plan of the redemption and the process of the revelation of truth consciousness that will result in the extinguishing of all evil on earth and throughout the universe via the arc of the Chilakosm and the superluminal Merkaba vehicles, which are transmuting this earth dungeon into a holy space through a complex technological infusion of higher dimensional energies into reality, thus the spheres. And as we tune into that and allow our bodies to come to frequency with that, and that includes the right decisions of making food, whether it's forced on you like me through some dental work, or Corey through this or whatever. Everyone's going to have their own pace. Stay away from water that's been fluoridated. Drink pure water. Eat pure foods as much as possible. You got a restaurant, it's tough. Just do the best that you can. I'm going to say this for health. There's no more worthy goal than to pay perfect homage to the sacred temple of flesh, which is our vehicle for spirit on this plane. At the same time, obsessing about food and, worrying what other people are eat is not good. It's what comes out of you that defiles you than more than what comes in you. Your body can transmute. We do have higher vibrational technologies that will bring things about. Really would be nice to see that come sooner than later, but you never know. That's kind of an artistic image of the I am, or the rainbow bridgehead. It initiates a aspect of transcendence through a personal relationship with Source. And as a personal relationship I've experienced, it can be an intimate and personal experience. It can be a connection which is just felt and known. The universe responds to who, where, and what we are at any moment with the perfect experience for us to grow in love and compassion. That was kind of an important one, because when we are faced with these challenges and these stresses in our life, it's another chance for us to forgive and to look into the issue or the thinking that brought that to us. I've had some health issues, and I thought I was Superman when I was a kid. I was very athletic. I was an All-American water polo player, NC2A championship team. I played with them. Like I just thought, I'm going to be Jack LaLanne. I'm going to be pulling 80 boats when I'm 60 across the Potomac or wherever we went. And it's just very humbling. I've had some challenges and issues, and it's slowed me down and given me a lot of compassion. We're fragile beings. We are very delicate, and we need to be gentle with people. As Omnik said, the guy who's drunk on the street and has problems, it could be his last lifetime. He could be going through finalizing his stuff. You never know. So do not judge. You don't know the conditions of everyone. They have to make their own decisions, and Valiant Thor says never give someone something that they can do for themselves. So you teach a man to fish, You don't just keep giving them fishes. Although if we run out, I will make sure that we'll have enough fishes for later. Oh, there we are. The dark side. No, those are the good guys, aren't they? I forgot. There's one of the great spiritual leaders of our time who really walked the talk. I had so much admiration for him. I mean, I would have been like Muhammad. I would have been like, oh, grab the Uzis, we're done. I don't believe in the ratio thing like, Farrakhan or that. But, I mean, what a vision, what a life, what a man. Yeah, peace. Him and Gandhi, I mean, they really lived and walked the talk, and that's what happens. There's that picture again. You can get that book for free on my website, folks. Don't be afraid. Veil of Invisibility by Alexander Putney, who's actually a Jewish guy married to Otto Skorzeni's daughter. And he got all the information and pictures on his deathbed. Delete. That's an old program. Okay. We're going to... They want you. There's the thing. That's where I grew up in Laguna. Now I'm going to go to the pyramids a little bit. Pyramid principle is the principle where matter is made flesh. It has a frequency, and there's all 7 levels of life force in there, like a prism. And it means pyramid, fire in the middle. Isaiah 19:19. In the middle of Egypt, in the border thereof, there lies an altar to the Lord. That's the Great Pyramid. There's Dr. Fred Bell. He was fixing television sets at 8 years old, and there was a guy who tried to cheat him because he was so young, but he was a little scientific genius. There's his great uncle. There's him on a motorcycle, and really interesting thing. He wanted to get a motorcycle like that, and he had one of those holographic projectors. In fact, I'm going to have, if someone could go out there and get me receptor, a projector, and that big gold thing out there, I want to share those technologies a little bit. I don't want to make this too much an infomercial, but I want to share with you how these technologies work. And he was looking for that type of bike, and with his projector, he actually manifested the very bike that he sold. He had crashed and bent the handlebars, and the guy who bought it from him never fixed it, and his son sold it to him. That's some trippy holographic technology to bring in the exact bike that you had when you're looking for one on the internet. And this is the holographic projector. This was a technology given by the Andromedans. And I used to have telepathic communications with them through Fred. I would ask questions and stuff, and he'd go, they said this. And then this is the receptor. This was given to Fred in 1975 at Christmas time. I remember it came down, and he was really happy and had high energy, and he had a contact, and said he laid in her lap and she stroked his head, and he had different stories. But this device, you can check this out, the booth is called the Nuclear Receptor, and I want to do a test on that and show you how that works in a little bit. But this is on the back, you can see a little better. This is called the Cassican wave trap by NASA, and it's a way of circulating the energies. And what this technology does is it doesn't, like I can do a muscle test if we had some toxic glue or something. You do a muscle test, you see how strong you are, then you take some glue and you breathe it, and then I do a muscle test. If we can find some stinky glue or something like that, if there's anything in there, or even you guys, we didn't bring sugar, but sugar is another good one that can weaken your aura. Maybe they can find some in the, maybe someone can ask the kitchen if they have white sugar. We probably didn't bring any, but, and what it does is, this is the focal length of the DNA, about 22 hertz. There's some primary frequencies of, oh, chocolate, that'll work. Cadbury's, oh, I like that. Can I have it when you're done? The DNA has certain aspects of frequencies. I was very into health when I was younger. Traveled with the National Health Federation and Fred Bell for some years, 10 years, and we traveled. We did Seattle, Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, New York, and we'd hit a couple later on as health got a little more. We'd hit Georgia and Florida with the National Health Federation. And then it became the Whole Life Expo, and we were one of the first booths from Alan Goldman, who started that. He was a really close friend of ours with the thing. And oh, okay, we may have some car activity here. Let me see here. What is this? This is, oh, a vendor Yalara dropped a $100 note on the ground. If anyone found this, appreciation, please take it back. Anyway, so we did a lot of traveling. That was with Pat Flanagan, Victoris Kovinskis, Bernard Jensen of iridology, some of the bigger names in health. Victoris invited me and David Cameron to meet Michio Kushi, the guy of Erewhon, and it was very interesting. And he looked at me and thinking, oh, Samku. I was like, he goes, you need your colon clean, dude. And I wasn't eating balanced, but there's a lot of amazing things that happened there. It was kind of like a new age circus, kind of like it is now. The book, The Promise, talks about that kind of stuff. There's some interesting stories. They kind of transposed my life in Laguna to Fred's. It's a fictional account written by Brad Steiger about the early days of Fred and his development and contact with Semyasi. Steven Spielberg came and visited our booth. And remember the little thing that shined the light down on Luxor where they found the thing, the thing they were trying to get that burned the hand? Yeah, that's where it came from. It was from Steven Spielberg meeting Fred and learning the little story. So let's do a little muscle test. Come on up. I'll just show real quick how this works. And oh, there we go. Okay. Let's put your left arm out straight. Turn the body. Just keep it straight. What this does is this isolates the muscle that goes from the adrenal glands in the body. It's going to put this right there. Resist. 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 Okay. So a little thing there. This isn't a big muscle. It's a strength class. This is a quicker energy thing. Another one to try.
Not much.
Let's give her a hand. So, I've always loved these things. Just got a joy to make them. Is Alana here? No. Dr. Bell's daughter will come up, and I'm going to introduce her probably later. She had some problems getting here. Not sure what's going on with her, but I sent her some money. She ran out of gas. So I'm working in concert with her. She's has the rights, intellectual property rights to Dr. Fred Bell, so we'll be sharing this. I've really been looking forward to sharing that technology. Let's go around the room there. Maybe Brian wants to catch some of these on that camera over there, but or that might be easier to look over there. But if you go to the back, you'll see this white wire there that goes to that. It's called a star orb, star shield type of device. And that device is to dampen the scalar field energies that come in through your house. You have energies that are coming in through your electrical lines. Part of the plasma scalar field network is built on that, and the Palladians gave us that. It goes in, and I've added a wire to it, and it plugs into your ground only, and that dampens the field. Fred liked to put them over the refrigerator because he said that your food would go bad quicker for that way, and so that's a star shield. The one in the back there's some crystals, and it's actually electrified with a floating ground Tesla violet flame technology that you can feel. It actually rains down. It's called an ion shower. It kind of cleanses your aura and perks you up, and kind of is, it'd be a good implant dampener as well. It's a violet flame. And that's kind of another gift. You can always do an invocation of the violet flame through in your visualization of violet, the color, and bringing that energy into your body. So you got back there the ion shower and that. The one in the very back over there, the cross, that's called the fire star. And the fire star has crystals in there, and when you shoot lasers in them, you put them in a room, it actually changes the vibration. And one of the things about this technology is you don't have to think about it. You don't have to take a prescription. It's just setting a field around you. Let's go to the tower. You might want to turn around for a good picture. Maybe you could grab that tower mic and bring it out and face it towards the audience. Mike Sawada, grab that tower and turn it towards Brian so he can get a good, or Seth, yeah, there's Seth. Yeah, that's the irradiator column. And this sits on a plastic plate that keeps it insulated from the ground. In the bottom, you put 4 small clusters, and in the mixing chamber, you can put different crystals that actually will determine the frequency rate of the plasma scalar field that will come out from this. And this actually will bathe your body. If you put like these receptors in there, you get 12 different receptors. You can put 12 irradiators in a large group. And the intent of this, and I experienced it, so I know it's real, is for divine intervention, and that is to amplify your thought forms. And the intent of these systems, and I'm going to have more of a conscious public now who might be able to utilize these. Some of these are expensive to make, and they're not for everyone, but the intent is that you create these systems, have a large group of people, like you've seen those beautiful monk things where they sit in the Fibonacci mandala and do the meditation and prayer for world peace. That's the idea of this system, would be to do this in that group and increase the potential. So as I was saying, you have an aura, a toroid. If you look from the top, it's a donut. If you look from the front, it's like a butterfly. Okay, and we'll see some pictures here. But this is an omnion. So this sits in the center of the system under a master crystal. And as the moon changes, it raises and lowers. During the full moon, it should be over that. That actually sunk a little bit when we put those up. It should be a little higher above it for where the moon phase is. So this sits in a pulley in your house, and you raise and lower it just like the Great Pyramid. The rooms would raise and lower for the free energy device. So that's what's called a basic pyramid system, and you can put things in the middle. Like you want to read a book, you want to get the book, you put the book in there overnight, and you turn the Tesla field on, and your will automatically have impressions of the book. You can put other devices. Judy Beebe's gem spheres we'll be putting in those tonight. We're going to hook those up with a violet flame. I'm not going to do it now, the room's too small. But when we open up for Clive's beautiful music tonight, we're going to make a little area where you can come over, and if you get close, you'll feel like a little violet arc, like a blue sphere arc will come out in that plasma scale field, and you'll be able to feel it. And that's what this technology is. It's to help you work with this. And this is junior level. The ATs have, of course, very advanced levels. They said that at a certain point, certain contactees will be given certain stones that will monitor their aura, and they'll be able to work more directly through the human consciousness field that way. There's Dwal Kul, who told Fred to make the gold pyramid. Kutumi, one of my favorite teachers. There's the disciplical lineage of Babaji, and Babaji looks like that. His hair is back, bald, super skinny, hasn't changed. They call him the Deathless Guru. He's 250,000 years. It's supposed to be his span of service to the earth. And I was told by one person that he takes you from the planetary to the solar or galactic initiation. And that was in '78, and I started having the other plating stuff. This is the symbol of the Trinity symbol that's recognized in different religions, but you have the one. So this is how it goes: is it a Trinity, or is it one? It's actually one, but as it manifests, you have one becomes two. But as soon as it splits, you have a relationship between the two. And that's a flower of life that you see going on all the time. That's a manifestation of Christ, supposedly taken in 2017 by a psychic guy who gets camera pictures. His name is Robert van de Broek. He lives in Holland, and that's supposedly a picture of Mary, who was a thing. That's my altar there. I have a bunch of different lasers shooting on a bunch of crystals there, and I just sit in front of it for meditation purposes. I don't worship the crystal or the pyramid, or you don't need a physical thing, but we like to have the Tao or the altar there. For me, it just reminds me of the thing, like we have the statues of the Buddhas and the different pictures in Christ, and they're gone, so people do that. There's Babaji, the science of the still breath. That's the Cintamani Stone on my forehead. We talked about meditation is listening to God. When you enter into the silence, you listen. And of course, you have to have a balance between the inner and outer, and prayer is the technique of talking to God or manifesting. And talk like a little child, and be humble, and know that you know nothing. That's Meet the Pleiadians, sort of. For me, in my experience as Dr. Fred Bell, it was like Carlos Castaneda. Fred would push me on the back. He would hit me on the back, and I would exit my body in the early days. And I was very young, and he would call me up and goes, "The temple's rolling tonight, come on up." And from 1 to 3 in the morning, or 12 to 3 in the morning, I would have out-of-body experiences. I said, "Why are we always doing it?" He says, "The astral plane is quiet in the area, it's easier to get out." And I would watch the earth disappear, I'd be taken above, and I was just a telepathic communication with information. I would ask questions, and I'd be shown things, and I never understood it. Fred wouldn't say anything, and then in the morning he'd go, "You better take an Epsom salt bath before going home," and I would ground out. And then I was finally rewarded with a physical beam up. And it was 11 at night, and left my body as usual, and I ended up standing, like materializing on the corner of the room, and Fred slaps me on the back and goes, "You're the master now." And I was like, "Oh," and I remembered all of this information. The veil had been dropped for a moment. It was like a Looney Tune. And all I remember was saying goodbye on a spaceship and then being there. So again, the veil is we need to clear that up. And here it is, 40 years later and I'm not mature enough or balanced enough, we'll have a lot of work to do. So I was sort of, but this is the pictures of these systems with the lasers, and you can actually see the vortex in the center. We'd have a lot of incense. This was in our other show we did here. We're going to do this tonight. You're going to get some lasers. You can take lasers and shoot them into a glass of water with crystal. Very simple. You purify and raise the vibration of your water, and crystals have a lot of uses. You can put them on your chakras and heal your body. There's Fred in the early days. I took that picture, so I'm not in it, but that's his third wife. He had 4. And that's Rowena, and yeah, so that is the Great White Brother Sisterhood, which I want to know about from Fred, and he told me about a guy named Tornado and Richard when he met Fred Bell out at Giant Rock, and a ship came down and they all went aboard, and Fred went to the machine. Tornado was a musician, and they had a sitar in the spaceship, and he played sitar, and the other guy just tried to get a date with the girl. And he said they told him, you could, if you ever need us, you can say Kadosh, 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 and the noise voice. And this guy used it as an ego trip once, and his friends wouldn't believe him, and he said it, and the spaceships appeared, but they never came afterwards because he used it improperly. But this is Louis Chase probably took this picture, yeah, with his camera, and we were at 15,000 feet looking upward. Now, Louis said he's been up behind that heart exists the Temple of Purity in the Garthan Network. They're similar to Kari's group. They're very, it's like a monastery. They don't talk, they're very quiet. He said that there was a Draco that was guarding the entrance. So there are good Dracos, some type of beings there that in the cave entrance when he was telepathically guided up. Louis was taken in one of those blue portals from Machu Picchu 30 years ago to the Jupiter portal. I'll be taking some people there next year. We're going to do 2 trips to Machu Picchu and Lake Titicaca, and then we'll do Lake Titicaca and the other place. It's so beautiful up there. I'm really looking for. I've never been to Peru. I'm looking forward to going there. But so we do have other people who have been to the inner earth and can tell us the benevolent thing. He said, another thing he said, if there's a inner earth base, there's always a benevolent confederation base nearby. So he said he was in the underground disk of the sun with the 40,000-year-old master, Soramez, who is his main master, or teacher, or guide, as he calls him. And he said, what's that over there? Oh, that's a confederation base. So they're always very close. The Great White Brotherhood and the Confederation work hand in hand, and doing subtle manipulations, going over the population, and they work telepathically. Some of these masters can carry on conversations with a lot of people at the same time. Not misleading, but leading you towards the light. Lake Titicaca, or Mount Shasta, of course, has one. The Himalayas, that's South America. Corey's probably been inside there. We don't. And of course, there's the ancient teachings. I won't go into scalar waves. That's the vortex. I already had that one. We did that. Oh, and you can also lay on that crystal out there with the crystal. There's another one hanging down, and you can shoot lasers in here. And this is usually a private time. This is not like for show. Generally, I do it here in the public. But if you get into the pyramid systems, you can have a lot of high energy, and be careful because you might come on and go, I know it all. You just got to be mellow, and the vibrations will change. Anyone can take a laser and put a crystal on their third eye, and you're gonna for 30 minutes, you will feel some changes. You will notice changes in your complex neurohormonal structure. You will probably not be able to sleep because red's like get up in the morning. So if you shoot one over we do have these 7-foot, 8-foot, and 9-foot pyramids. you can put over your bed. I will do a little show special price. There's some additional accessories that go with that. But I usually shoot a green or a blue laser over my bed when I can sleep better. It's a nice way to go. That's at our show a couple of years ago at our different location. There's Omnek. Look at her. She's so sweet. She's had her stroke, but she just laughs, and she's just so a beautiful person. These are the different looks of how it works. And it locks, the DNA gets devolved by the stresses, food, vaccinations, and what this does, it tells the DNA, stay strong. Like we have all this stuff breaking up our field, this is locking it down. So that's kind of how the technology works. It doesn't it's not going to work with nuclear radiation, although he calls it that. That's another picture by that guy, and I don't know if you guys, some of you know my son. I swear to God, that looks like my son. I was kind of, yeah, well, it looks like my son. Yeah, it's the same artist with a different, he's got my son's face up there. It was weird. I had to get that picture. So we'll go forward through that. Oh, there's Shambhala, and see some orbs in the pyramid from our last show a couple of years ago. Again, that's where they went on the moon. They did do the hangar pictures of the moon, and then they went off and did something else, and we just saw them walking around and doing stuff on the moon, but they were doing other things up there. There's Buzz up there. Corey, that was taken here last year, right above the trees. Is that, can you, there's like a little, there was a little thing. And now, is that blue sphere, does that look familiar to you? Or it's not, it actually is the resolution on this is kind of a violet blue. There's actually, see those 2 dots at top? There's actually 6 dots in there, but it's not showing up because of the screen. But that was taken here. This was taken down in Brazil 2 months ago. So I don't know if that was taken by a credible source. This is Mars. There's plants. There's water. The Men in Black from the 30s. The big aliens. We're repeating stuff. Valiant Thor. Yeah. So I'm going to end. We're getting near the end. What time is it, by the way? Almost 12? Good. We're on schedule. We have the teachings are about balance between the inner and the outer life, and they have a guideline for us, which is called the 5-pointed star of life. And they wanted us to become. We have a spiritual point. So you meditate, you focus on the Creator, you give thanks. If you have an orientation for the divine, everything stems from your realization that we're all connected. Love connects us all. And then you have a physical life. So you got to brush your teeth, you got to clean your hair, you got to exercise every day, you got to eat the right foods. So you take care of your body on a logical, on a balanced level. And then you have the mental life. So they recommend that you learn, that you expand your awareness, and that you become conscious and read books and go to seminars and that. And then you have a social life. They want you to interact with people. You become more balanced when you exchange energy with others. And they call it financial, but it's really a service life. You find something that you give back or do with. It doesn't, where it's not going to be about money, hopefully sooner than later, but you'll give back to your society. For instance, in the Agarthan network here in Telos, they have a barter system, and every single person, including the highest teacher and God, they all go down and scoop dinosaur shit in the lower level. So in the Venusian society and in this other society, and I don't know about the details of the other, but they all grow up learning every system. So when you're a kid, you go through your schooling process, you spend time in the hydraulic system of the water pump, of how the food is made. You learn all of the technologies. Every person is a well-balanced, they live longer, of course, but they become a very well-balanced person, and they understand science and geology and physics. So everyone can, when the spaceship breaks down, everyone can take everyone's place, kind of thing. So they say if you overdo yourself in one area, like you become too spiritual, you become like, Jesus is not your savior, or you better say Hare Krishna. You focus on people too much, and you become dogmatic. If you get too physical, you become a musclehead maybe, and your whole life is at the gym and health, and you don't work things out. So they recommend you develop your 5-pointed star evenly. They have a writing out exercise that they recommend you do. No more than 15 minutes. You write all negativity. And some people can talk it out, but it's best not to dump on your friends. Do it on the bus where you're never going to see someone again. Oh, my boss said this. Get all your negativity out, writing. And I just do a 15-minute writing. I swear, I really don't get this. And just kind of go over your limitations in life and negativity for 15 minutes, and then you burn it. You don't look at it or see it again. You don't think about it and let it go. Then you do the Ring of Fire prayers, and we did the inner ring. We'll do the other ones. And another very important point they said is a house divided against itself cannot stand. So when you become angry, and I do that sometimes because I have a short fuse and it goes off, but then I go down. Some people have a longer fuse, and you're only hurting yourself. So if we have these difficult thoughts and these processes, we just realize who's really getting the short end of the stick? It's us. So realize that that's a program, that it's based on our ignorance of who we are, and that we're all together, and that we need to mature and realize that. George King, we have the missions and healing crews of the earth. These are the vortex workers, the portals. We have a portal here. I'm sure we got Blue Sphere and all kinds of stuff watching over us and monitoring how you're reacting to this information, especially with the other teachers coming forward. Master Aetherius, and if you can read that at the bottom there, you can look that up. But this guy was going on mountains in the 50s and doing stuff. You can see a little energy beam from the top. There's Louis with our crew there. In South America, it was a fun time. Him and his lovely wife in his home. He's an architect, and he has a lot of phenomenon. He's a very cool guy. That's the Master Soramez, who materialized briefly for a moment. The only picture ever taken, and he's very old, but you can see a special serenity there. 40,000-year-old being. The golden disc of the sun and Lemuria. Oh, this is the Anu, the heart energy, the chakra that you can see. This is the ultimate physical atom. I don't have time to go into the planes of consciousness and thing, and the Great Pyramid here. But that's the Buddha teachings. Life is suffering. There's a cause of suffering. We end the suffering, and the path of the end of suffering is the Eightfold Path. Right concentration, right meditation, right recreation, right livelihood, right diet, and so forth. So those are the precepts that are set for us. Fred did not like to go up with the ships. In the end, they were meeting him in Laguna, and they would just cloak the ship, and he would have a conversation on the side of the hill because he didn't want to come back. And it reminds me of what Alex Collier said. He was crying, and Mornay, he was like holding on to the spaceship door. Mornay's, the pain you carry is the love you withhold. That's a little exaggerated, but he was crying, and we're crying down here. Anyway, Cobra and I love him. He's one of the highest integrity beings I've ever met. He's very sincere, very honest, sharp as a tack, and I really respect him and his message. As I said last night, we kind of separated. I needed to separate from working for him and doing the mission, and I wanted to post what I wanted to around the interviews, and we had a disagreement, and it's okay. I really respect his work. I think he's doing good work for the light, and I do read every post he says, and like with everyone, you have to take it with a grain of salt here and there. That was in Egypt. That's Syed, the guy. That was when we were headed in the Great Pyramid, the prayer for change. Yeah, there's the bad guys. We know what they got going on. There's that one of those ships. Yeah, that's from William Tompkins. I got that through, what's his name? But, of course, the bad guys got their butt kicked thanks to Corey in the secret space program. It's a shame that we have to have violence. Certain of the galactic groups will not be involved in that aspect of the quarantine. They just do not do violence. The Venusians, they just won't do it. They're not going to be involved in that. And unfortunately, pardon? The Earth Alliance, they did that, yeah. Yeah, that's what I meant, Secret Space Program, the Earth Alliance. But that wasn't the SSP, that was the Earth-based one? Oh, so there's two different... Oh, they just got it, yeah, yeah. Okay, there's a lot of stuff coming out. So they just got the Earth-based Alliance, and they're probably a little more balanced and less mind-controlled and positively... Okay, because I asked him last night, I said, what about this Dugway things? And he said, no, they don't know. They go to work every day, and they come home and they don't know. Like the guy who broke his mind control and took me out in the desert, and the spaceship landed with Gabriel, and I had a conversation when I was 22 years old, and that was my first real contact, and he showed me implants and different things. Didn't really make sense till about 5 years ago. I started to assimilate what I had learned there, although I knew it. And I apologize, I had a big chip on my shoulders in the 80s and 90s. I was just frickin', what am I doing with this information? No one's understanding me, and I want to just grab people like stuff spinach down their throat, and you will believe me, you will believe me. You know, it's ego, it's a self thing, and you have to be realized. And now I don't even want to tell my friends. I recommend it. You don't tell your family and your friends what you learned here. It's going to go over their heads. So those are some of the major players there, and then of course that's an interesting look. And you got the grays. That's a chupa. Not cobra, chupacabra. That's a real one that came out when the good guys, when Cobra talked about, they took back over the bases and started kicking them out because they had done an invasion in '95, and they had taken over some of the positive Agartha network. And then when some of the other forces came in, they did have physical battles, and some of them were forced to the surface. And so in Brazil, pretty nasty looking being. And there's another, I think these are the Omegans personally. This is the syndicate group that's working with the government, and some of the ones, they have a little pen in their pocket, and they can hit you with a phase, a stun, or they can make you bleed out from the bone marrow. Charles White talked about them, but it's not a smiley, happy picture, is it? So, oh, laser! We got frickin' laser beams. I forgot. Scotty, come down. Move down the bench, Mini-Me. Awkward. Not you, henchman. Mini-Me. Oh, that's at the top of the Bosnian pyramid with Hertak. I took that crystal around. So, what do we have? They got all that technology. We have peace. We have the spirit of truth. We have honor. We have justice. We have equanimity, loyalty. We've got the inner sound current, our own connection to God. We've got courage. We have humility. We have charity. We have faith. We have perseverance. Those are the keys to the kingdom. And those are the eternal truths that go with you beyond life and death. So you establish yourself in the truth, and the truth will establish itself in you. And the Holy Spirit, those are the 12 virtues: loyalty, patience, honesty, perseverance, compassion, equanimity, courage, humility, temperance, charity, and faith. And those correspond to the astrological signs. And you can go from top to bottom and see your sign in which compassion or whatever, what energy. You look at your chart, you'll see that. There's Patty Boy. We have the Elohim, the angels of heaven, and the living word of God. There's an incarnation, what they call the Trinity teacher, Sai Baba. He was in his second incarnation, and he had a lot of stuff. That's where the answers lie. That's a mirror. Yeah. Look at yourself, look closely. That's one of the things I do. And you had a stressful day. Look in the mirror and see what you did, and you will answer yourself. Were you nice to everyone? Were you kind? Were you honest? Were you sincere? And each moment is special. Give thanks and pray. There's that Mormon picture again. I guess that got in there. And that's it. I made it through all those pictures. Amazing. Thank you all so very much.